Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the official launch of the book entitled Names Fashioned by Gender, Stitched Perceptions, edited by Professor Meyiwa and Professor Cekiso. As we lightening the scholarly publishing way, which is the motto of Unisa Press, I would like to request the director for Unisa Press, Dr. Nthoesane, to do the official welcome. Over to you, Dr. Nthoesane.
Thank you, Prof, and good day, distinguished guests. We are delighted that you could join us to celebrate this piece of work today. And I think the big welcome really goes to the editors who are the force behind the brains and the labor in this work. Professor Meyiwa and Professor Cekiso. We really hope that joining us this afternoon, you will find food for thought and you will be as joyful as we are. I mean, from Unisa Press point of view, if I were to share with you, this is one of the texts that has been a joy to go through them. I mean, even the title of the book, Names Fashioned by Gender, Stitched Perceptions. You know, the team and I, as we were working through this text, because you usually go back and forth between yourselves as a publisher and the authors, a lot of wisdom has been picked up as we were enjoying really to prepare this work. And we're really excited that you could be here with us as we give this body of work to the world to feed from this vessel of excellence, in my view, and hard work and challenging ideologies and perceptions on how names are used really to create perceptions. So I welcome you here. Have joy, relax, let your hair loose, those who have hair, let your jacket loose, and let's enjoy this book launch of Professor Meyiwa and Professor Cekiso, Names Fashioned by Gender, Stitched Perceptions. You're all welcome. Be at home. Let's enjoy the launch. I thank you, and thank you, Program Director.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Nthoesane. Now that you have welcomed us, and I now feel at ease also to even introduce myself. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nobuhle Ndimande-Hlongwa. I am your MC for today's afternoon program as we officially launch the outstanding work that our professors have been working on the important subject of onomastics, on the important subject of names. Onomastics is a scientific study of names. So we look forward to reading all the contributions from all the contributors. As we continue with our project and also our program, ladies and gentlemen, may I now welcome Professor Byrne, who is also going to give a comment about this book. Over to you, Prof.
Good evening, colleagues and distinguished guests. It's a great honor for me to be here this evening to introduce the book, Names Fashioned by Gender, Stitched Perceptions, edited by our very own Vice Principal for Research, Innovation, Commercialization and Postgraduate Studies, Professor Meyiwa and Professor Cekiso, who are also here this evening. Names Fashioned by Gender is a groundbreaking book in a number of ways, and today I'm going to focus on a few of those ways. In the first place, it makes a significant contribution a significant and original contribution to the debates about feminism in Africa and feminist research in Africa, which are not the same things. Gender scholars from the global north often assume that Africa is first homogeneous in terms of its cultural practices, and secondly, that women are oppressed in every country that makes up the continent of Africa. A third misconception, often expressed by Africans, is that feminism does not belong in Africa because it is an import from Western nations. Meyiwa and Cekiso's edited volume dispels all three of these myths in one go. It is a consciously feminist work of scholarship, as the editors explain in the introduction when they say, through this book, drawing from its studies and chapters in critiquing gender and names using feminist analyses, we submit that gender justice is crucial and can be argued, garnering how African community cases discussed in the book present the cultural constructions of gender through names. All the 31 scholars who have contributed to the book, including the two editors, have written from a feminist perspective and have used feminist theories of linguistics, indicating strongly that feminist scholarship is alive and well in Africa. And as a feminist myself, this is music to my ears. Now, as has been mentioned, the particular discipline of names fashioned by gender is onomastics, a sub-discipline of linguistics which deals with proper names. Meyiwa and Cekiso state, names are essential and existential. Without them, we are unable to be easily identified. Yet names tend to be taken for granted and not paid attention to. Proper names are given to people, cities, suburbs, buildings, provinces, even cars and ships, and of course pets. Elwyn Jenkins, a former professor extraordinarius of the Department of English Studies at Unisa, wrote a book on the renaming of places in South Africa. And I'll just illustrate this, how important this was, by a few anecdotes from my personal experience. I grew up in a city named Pietermaritzburg. The city was named after Piet Retief and Gert Maritz. They were two male, white Afrikaners who were leaders of the Great Trek. I lived in a street called Andries Bezuidenhout Street. Andries Bezuidenhout did not refer to the alternative Afrikaans musician Andries Bezuidenhout, but to another white male leader of the Great Trek. Now, these names have largely, but not entirely, been changed to reflect the majority demographic of the country. But, as I realized on reading Names Fashioned by Gender, the gender bias of place names hasn't changed at all. Names Fashioned by Gender is a rich offering of 24 chapters and an introduction. Each of these chapters deals with a different aspect of the gendered conventions of naming, and they each found to different degrees that the names bestowed on children are gendered. An important background text to this volume is Oyironke Oyiwumi's The Invention of Women, making an African sense of Western gender discourses, which was published in 1997. Oyiwumi argues very strongly that pre-colonial Yoruba society was structured along lines of seniority rather than along gendered lines, and she argues that gender was brought to Africa by Western colonizers. As Temitope O. Adekunle, Alfred Jana Matiki, and Modupi M. Alimi demonstrate in their chapters, this may have been true of pre-colonial naming conventions, but is no longer so due to the influence of colonizing forces and the habits that have been adopted in Africa of giving children gendered names. In fact, Matiki and Alimi mention in their chapter that names in English are often phonemically gendered, with strong sounds, long vowel sounds and plosive consonants occurring in male names, and what they call more attractive sounds, shorter vowel sounds, and more musical sounds are usually found in female names. They also observe, interestingly, that there are many feminine versions of male names, such as Simon and Simone, and Jack and Jacqueline, and so on, but there are no male versions of female names, reinforcing the view of masculinity as prototypical and femininity as derivative. This is only one of the many, many jewels that you will find in Names Fashioned by Gender. Covering many countries and population groups in Africa and dealing with an enormous range of naming conventions, Names Fashioned by Gender, Stitched Perceptions is a fascinating addition to linguistics, onomastics, and the study of our gendered African communities. Thank you so much, and over to you, Madam Program Director.
Thank you very much, Professor Byrne, for the comments, the scholarly comments you have made about this important, groundbreaking book edited by our esteemed professors. I can't agree with you more, Prof. This book asserts that females continue to be named according to gender stereotypes, therefore evidently perpetuating women oppression. And this book comes at an opportune time, Prof, as we as the country are fighting and are currently as a country working on the scourge of gender-based violence in the country. And this book about the names is actually going to take us through understanding as to maybe where some of these violations against women, against children are actually coming from. We appreciate the launch and the time in which this book is actually launched and published. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As we continue with our program for today, I will now want or request that we now bring the main brains in the production of this volume. I will now like to introduce the editors of this book. And the first editor of the book is Professor Meyiwa. Professor Meyiwa is the Vice Principal for Research, Postgraduate Studies, Innovation, and Commercialization at the University of South Africa. We welcome you, Prof. And I would also like to introduce the second editor, that is Professor Cekiso, who is the next editor of the book. Professor Cekiso is from the Department of English. He's the Professor of English from the University of Fort Hare. I think I will begin with Professor Meyiwa to give us or take us through the journey for the book. Over to you, Professor Meyiwa.
Jambo. Good morning, good evening, good day. We are across all platforms, across Africa. Some of us are in France. Some of the contributors are in Germany. There are others are in Nigeria, Botswana, all over. It's only Northern Africa that we're not covering here. This is such a celebration for all the contributors. Let me just take you through where we've come. This has been a very long journey. It is a journey that one, to a certain degree, will have expected it to be long because of it being a groundbreaking kind of work where we're looking at the feminist lens through which we want to be looking at names. So as an intellectual project, a theoretical project, it's been a journey that has been long for many reasons, and that has brought together a number of contributors from across Africa as well as beyond the seas, many of whom will be coming from Southern Africa, of course. Now the question is, why the edge? Why the journey? Why this path? This path is actually looking at this kind of work, which is a social sciences, applied linguistics, social linguistics aspect, which we refer to as onomastics, wherein we're looking at the origin, the use, the meaning, the history, the identities that are associated with the book in this project in particular, but with the names, the personal proper names, to be more specific. The journey actually started quite many years back. One of the reasons that it has been long, and I must actually thank all the contributors for staying on the project for such a long time, which is very appreciative, was the fact that we possibly overdid things. And also on behalf of my editor, who's not with me right now, Professor Cekiso, is that we had a sense that because it is a new form of introducing theoretical, intellectual, feminist analysis of gender, using names, using onomastics, it was prudent that even internally, with all the contributors that we have within this collection of essays, they have in one way or another served to be looking at what analysis is crucial to ensure that what we do becomes what we expect, and that it is indeed a scholarship that is not just only looking at the lens from the African context point of view, but that is in-depth, that is engaging, that is taking into account the context. So the journey has been long due to amongst other reasons, that fact. And of course, you know, having been around with my nomadic nature from the career point of view, it has contributed to that being much more longer. On this journey, what we did actually was to look at the case studies coming across the board, but this journey is a journey that's based on empirical research, that's based on analytical research, that's based on textual research, that's very inquisitive, if I may say, and that's very much looking at the cultural, socio-economic context that we actually have and continue to see. While on this journey, we've lost some people, which is something that I need to put up front and have to later on, I will come back to this, but to thank those that have fallen off the wagon due to health, that have fallen off the wagon because of career pathways that have taken them elsewhere, and those that are actually, even in our personal lives as editors, between my co-editor and I, during this journey, we both lost our parents. So that just goes to show, amongst the things that have happened along this journey, we both lost our mothers, and he lost his father during this journey, which had an impact on it being longer, but also had an impact on it from the internal side in terms of the capacity that we had to be looking into. But, you know, don't want to take you through a long journey. The fact of the matter is now we have the product, and the product is here, a very intensive product, a product that I'm pretty sure all the contributors, that are about 35, have made a huge significance in looking at this kind of work that is so intricate, that is so community nuance, that is very much looking at matters of identity. Having said that, let's just continue the journey of this launch to look at what else could we say about the launch that is of this nature. Thank you, Program Director, my sister over there who's very close to my heart, also a contributor in the book, Professor Nobuhle, Ndimande-Hlongwa. Thank you so much for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to Professor Meyiwa, our editor of the book Names Fashioned by Gender. Thank you very much, Prof. Meyiwa, and also to Prof. Cekiso. Prof, you have mentioned that The book has about 35 contributors who are coming all over the globe. I do want to share the same sentiments and thank all the contributors to this volume. I was, before we started the program, I was talking to the director of the Unisa Press that the next challenge now will be to translate this book now and make it available in all the indigenous South African languages. So this is the next project towards the intellectualization of African languages. Thank you very much, Prof, for sharing with us the journey. And also, Prof, condolences to you and Prof Cekiso. I understand that along the journey, you lost your parents. May their souls rest in peace. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Firstly, I would like to thank Unisa Press for inviting me to this prestigious invitation to come and join Professor Meyiwa on the launch of this wonderful book named Names, Fashioned by Gender. And of course, she is here with me. First of all, before I go into my Q&A, I'm Godfrey Ndimande from Unisa Radio. And yeah, I would like to thank Unisa Press once again for this opportunity. So, Prof, thank you also for allowing me to come here and question you. Obviously, this is not going to be an interrogation. Just would like to find out a few things about what's in the book.
Okay.
Okay. Prof, firstly, what is in a name?
Okay. What's in the name?
What's in a name?
Certainly.
Yes.
We have 24 chapters in the book, 25 to be precise, with the introduction, which lays the foundation, which is responding to that question, Godfrey, what's in the name? So this is actually is what in the name, because that's the identity, you know? The identity, every person should have a name, especially in these times, even with communities that want to be secluded from the westernization. You have to have your identity book, your passport, or whatever. So what's in the name is a response that I'm inviting colleagues, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, to buy the book to know what's in the name, because we have 35 people in the book who actually respond to what's in the name. But my response to it as one of the contributors, and having put this as a leading editor, is that the name is who you are. The name is contextual based. We have what's in the name being explored in the book from areas that you wouldn't think will explore them. We move from the beer halls to the churches, to the Bible. We go into the villages. We look at little girls. We go into divorced women. We go into the marriages and explore what's in the name in terms of, in all these areas, as we do in the book, are saying, hang on, we actually do not think about what is indeed in the name. Hence, in the construction of the title of the book, we said this is stitched. If you look at it, it's because what's in the name is so very much stitched by various contexts. By yourself being in church, by yourself being Godfrey, by myself being Thenjiwe. There's so many histories that people find themselves as they walk along. They get to be accorded this, what's in your name, responding to that. And you know, my brief response is, get the book. You'll know how we travel the beer halls, to the commercial places, to the banks, to the villages, to all over the place, to the schools, to intimate relationships between men and women, boys and girls, to intimate relationships between in-laws, etc. So we're doing all of that. It's actually a journey in itself.
Now, Prof, me being named Godfrey from birth, is my name a box? Is my name a destiny? Is my name a direction? Like, if I change it, then I change everything about myself as a given identity, like as in Godfrey.
You know what? You can change it, which in itself is a journey. You know, naming is not cast in stone. You have people who will be named at birth and decide along the way. As you can hear some of them in the background right now, they're talking about this naming that we are about during this launch. That some people will say, I don't like this name. I'd rather have a different name because of the circumstances that this name came about. You know, it was too noisy within the relationships of my parents that this name came, or within the village there were fights, or possible it may have been actually accorded to me because of how I looked. So you may not be Godfrey from birth to the grave, but you may find yourself along the way. As we know, one of the contributors, actually our program director, she has two names, although those names are of course family names. That just goes to show that we change along the journey of identities because of various circumstances. Some of us change, go back, go front, go sideways. So naming is actually made very exciting through this project.
And lastly, Prof, I suppose the book also challenges the name given to a certain gender. For example, a male being given the name Dineo, it might carry some discriminatory implications. Like, for example, if I was named Dineo and I was in primary school, and you know, we all know Dineo to be a female name, and when they refer to me in that name, I might get laughed at. So is this something the book also looks at challenging?
You know, I'm actually thinking about that, the Alimi Matigi work in Setswana of Botswana, there's that reference to that kind. But their approach also comes from the point of Makhosi in terms of looking at that. But it in terms of being laughed at, because we're concentrating on the African cultures, we're saying that this is how we've been made to toe the line on the basis of whether you're a girl or boy, man or woman, or whether you were born as a first child or the last child, or whatever the case may be. So we find that you may not necessarily be boxed in a particular form, But I'm thinking of the fact that I must share this joke with my co-editor, who is a man, obviously, from Madoda. I mean, just even that, you know, goes to show the daughter in Madoda is because he's a man. But when he actually went to school in his first grade, he had everybody around him with an English name. It's only him who didn't have an English name. So when they got to him, he as a first grader said, "I'm Sylvia." And the teachers were said, no, that's a girl's name. And you know, for him, he knows the Sipo, Sizwe, Spusiso, and he just thought, okay, I had Sil something, I'll be Sylvia. Yeah. Out of that, he became a laughing stock, but he later on in his life, he ended up appreciating the fact that, you know, I'll actually call him, hey, Sylvia. He's liking that kind of name, but it has a very connotation to what you're making reference to, Godfrey, in the sense that there's lots of noise around it, as you can hear in the background, that how we named and how we would like to be named and how we actually know our community from which we come are named, will then make us have a particular identity agenda, which could lead to being laughed at, which could lead to being celebrated. But also what we're doing in the book, in this project, is to say it actually is very much along the lines of, are you a man or woman at most?
All right. Prof. Meyiwa, I thank you so much for your audience. And by the way, you have a nice taste in fashion.
Wow.
Thank you.
Not too far from what we're actually about, because these names are really fashioned by our cultures, our churches, our political landscape, which is all these kind of themes that we cover in this project.
Thank you very much to Professor Meyiwa and Godfrey Matibane from Unisa Radio for the excellent interview. Prof. Meyiwa, you mentioned something that names do change as these are our identities. You reminded me of the experience of my father. Not my blood father, but like my other father, you know, because like as Africans, we've got many fathers. One of my father, he was named Creswell as the second name by our grandparents. And when he got to high school, he said, I didn't like this name and I didn't know what it means. And what I did afterwards was that I decided to change my name and I called myself Wiseman. So when he got to the stage of going to have an identity document, his first name, he used his first name, and his second name was the name that he gave it to himself as the wise man, not the Creswell. So I wanted to mention there that, like, yes, names do change. In most cases, especially surnames, people do change surnames because of the circumstances. Even males, if you are born, maybe as a woman, I will have maybe a child before I get married, and that child maybe may want to use my surname as Ndimande. But when they find out who their real father is, they can change the surname and use the father's surname instead of my surname as the mother. So such circumstances do happen, and this book is taking us through that journey of who we are, what our names mean, which are our identity. Thank you very much for the conversation with Unisa Radio. Distinguished guests, as we coming close to our official launch of the book entitled Names, edited by Professor Meyiwa and Professor Cekiso, I will now like to welcome again Dr. Nthoesane to now do the vote of thanks and also doing the closing remarks. Over to you. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, my colleague, Professor Nobuhle. What a joy we just had in listening to the journey of one of the most fundamental descriptors of humankind and human beings. Names. In fact, we all, to a certain degree, become who we are most of the time called. Names. So Professor Meyiwa, thank you very much, and Professor Cekiso, for spearheading this much needed project. It couldn't have come at a better time for the now generation and future generations, for us to understand and drink from this vessel of understanding the meaning, the genesis, and arguably to a certain degree, meaning and interpretation of names. So we thank you for the work that you did. But as you all know, behind every show, there's a back office. There's a lot of work that happens. And I want to single out few colleagues and few organizations that really made this possible. I want to thank Unisa Radio for being with us and really partnering in launching this wonderful project, this wonderful book. Thank you, Unisa Radio. Alongside Unisa Radio, we really like to humbly thank our art gallery. Dr. Mkonza, thank you for being a partner in this journey. And I'm sure from the art gallery point of view and strategic positioning of Unisa, and thank you for choosing Unisa Press to publish this work. The art gallery and Unisa Press partnered in this, and with Professor Meyiwa to make sure that this book, and Professor Cekiso to make sure that this launch is a success. We also want to thank Cafe 41 here in Pretoria, for availing the place where we could come and sit and receive this wonderful launch of this book. Professor Sasanti, thank you for also being part of this process of this launch. We thank you very much. And we also want to thank Professor Byrne, who I think within a time of 5 minutes gave us a glimpse of the well we are about to drink from. Thank you, Professor Byrne, for that sterling work. I really want to thank my team, Unisa Press, for working tirelessly, from the copy editors to the indexers to the language editors, designers, the marketing team, a bunch of hard workers. I want to thank the colleagues for their hard work that they have put, sometimes sleepless nights, sometimes having to respond to an urgent email. But I want to thank that team for putting their all and making sure that this book is published on time. But I want to do this too, and please bear with me. I think the work behind names fashioned by gender, it's a culmination of many names, and it will be injustice of me not to thank these many names. Just give me a minute and I'm going to find them just now. There we go. There we go. I want to thank, I hope I pronounce the names correctly, so where I'm not butchering the names, Professor Meyiwa and Professor Cekiso. I'm in the process of learning names, so disclaimer in advance. But I want to thank Temitope Adekunle, Alfred Jana Matiki, and Mudupi M. Alimi, Huabilo N. Ramaiba, and Joyce T. Matangwani, Duran Jamba, Christopher Rozi, Lovisa Bazola, again Professor Thenjiwe Meyiwa and Professor Madoda Cekiso. So I'm just going through as the chapters as they were contributed. Excellent Chireshe. I must say I nearly passed excellent. Then I realized excellent is the name. Zinashe Mamvura, I hope I said it correctly, and Margaret Chipara, Kanyisile Rose Masha, and Ilse Dutoy. Just give me a minute. Okay, let me do this quickly if you allow me. My technology, I was trying to be nice and using technology, but there's always a backup of the old way. Nolutho Diko, Nosizi Feza, Nobuhle Ndimande-Hlongwa and Thandi Mvelase, our program director there. Chila Chilala or Chela Chilala, Adrian Kopman, who is also the chair of Professor Meyiwa, remind me again.
The founding president of the society.
The founding president of the Society of Names. Thank you, Prof. Meyiwa. We agile here. Ken Junior Lipenga, Gibson Ngube, Josephine Olufun Milayo Alexandra, Vimbai Matiza Mtombeni, Dikezo Dube and Sambulo Ndlovu. Mandieza Parichi, Philip Mpofu and Charles Tembo, and finally Tinai Charamba. Now, as I go through this process of thanking all these contributors in the name, it actually already brings something to my consciousness, the need for all of us to find a way to say the names as they are, because how the names are and how they are pronounced can have different meanings. So it's also a journey for us, Professor Meyiwa and Professor Madoda, that we need to find a way how we understand how the names are said, because the meaning can be lost in the name. I want to thank you everyone who's joined us here. Have a beautiful evening. Have a beautiful day. I thank you.